Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to CFL Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans, and we have our review of Week 5. I almost butchered that intro right near the start. I had like a little hesitation there. You probably noticed that, Rick. But we got 4 games here. And we're going to go in chronological order. We're going to start with the Edmonton Elks versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Now, I did not see 3/4 of this game, but the quarter that I did watch, oh my God. Oh my God. I was watching Indiana Jones for the first 3 quarters. Good movie. Better than Kingdom of Crystal Skull. Oh, totally recommend. Go watch it. Honestly, it's a lot better than I expected. But you know what isn't better than I expected? What was the finish to this game? How can you talk about, going into just a few things first, and then I'll pass it over to Rick. I'll let you hit that home run. There was a home run derby today. I'll let you participate in it. Saskatchewan, how do you go down 11-3 to the Elks? So Rick, maybe you can explain how such a catastrophe happened under the great leadership of Craig Dickinson.
First off, I have a question for you. Who do we blame on this? Do we blame the the
final play
not learning our rules? That's where I'm going on.
I'm going 50% on the player, 50% on Chris Jones, because 50% in terms of if you're a player, you should know the rules. Secondly, if you're a coach, to coach your players, if you can't even coach them the rules, that is something. And then also as a coach, when you have a play this important, even though it may seem obvious what to do, you always reinforce that in your mind. Like, for example, if it's like a hockey game and it's near the end of the game, you're going to the goalie and you're like, do not leave the net. Do not come to the bench to pull the goalie until we have possession in the offensive zone. That's something that you remind him. You know what I mean? So Chris Jones should have been like, hey, end of the game, don't let this ball go over your head. And, oh boy, please rip this apart.
I will give props where it's due. The corn dog actually finally, for the love of God, it only took him 5 weeks, I think, to throw a touchdown. He only had one, but he finally had a touchdown, which was the only touchdown that they scored.
Yep.
But my thing is, if you are Rider fans, you honestly have to be very scared for your team.
Honestly, this game, like that, at the end of that game, if there's any emotion you should be feeling, it should be relief. Because you almost,
it's funny because I'm sitting there messaging you during the game, and we're having this conversation back and forth. And you're like,
you were like, bro, I told you the Elks are gonna get one. And then I'm literally watching this, and I'm like, oh, tie game. Let's see how overtime goes. And I'm watching kickoff. I'm like, wait, why is he not right? Oh my God, he just took a knee in the end zone. Oh my God, he just took a knee in the end zone. And I looked over and it's funny. It's like that scene, it's like that promo when Brock Lesnar won Money in the Bank and he didn't know the rules of the contract. And Paul Heyman's like, my client has a year to cash in. He's like, a year? He's like, you didn't know? What? I didn't know. Why should I have known? It's like the two yelling at each other because he didn't know the rules. And I'm seeing it unfold because they pan the camera onto what's his name talking to Chris Jones. And Chris Jones is like, what? You didn't know? Oh my goodness.
But whoever their special team coach is, you got to give your head a shake too, because I put partial blame on him too as well.
Oh, absolutely. No, trust me, there is blame to go around on this one. But you can't, as much as it's easy to throw that on coaching staff, and there should be a level of it thrown on coaching staff. If you're a player, it is your responsibility to know the rules. It is. It's there are, and this is at any level of hockey. If you were playing minor hockey growing up, you need to know the rules. I've had the pleasure of a lot of teammates, but then I also had some guys on my team, Sometimes not the smartest guys in the world. For example, there was one year I had a guy who he was on the bench and he punched a guy on the ice in the head from the bench. You should never do that, because in the league I was in, that is a 1-game suspension automatically. Any sort of physical contact from the bench onto the. But the point is that it is your responsibility to know the rules of the league you're in. And I can understand that there are going to be confusions and little technicalities that you're going to forget about. But anything involving points, you should know. Anything that can give your opponent a point or give you a point, you should know. And so
I will say one thing: the CFL has let their fans down once again. Because if you look at the stat sheet, they have Cornelius throwing a touchdown, but then they also have him rushing for a touchdown. So did he rush? Did he throw? Because they also have Dunbar receiving a touchdown as well. So, again, Randy Ambrosie, finally, please get your shit together, my friends.
Jeez. Man, but this game, this is something where, man, we, I don't even know what to do here. If you're,
do you remember that game where it was all like single points? This is what this game reminds me of. That kicking game where it was just a bunch of singles.
4. Like what? Like just. It's funny because when I got home from watching my movie, I just assumed that they either ran a 2-point on the touchdown and got a field goal, or they got a field goal and 1 rouge. But then you text me and you're like, yeah, they got 4 rouge. I'm like, they got 4? They got 4 of those things? What? But final score, Saskatchewan does defeat the Edmonton Elks slightly, barely, from a fluke of a game, but they did defeat the Edmonton Elks. So let's go on to the next game of the week. We got the Calgary Stampeders versus the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So first off, I'm very pleased Winnipeg Blue Bombers win this game. The Bombers have to do 24-11. I'm okay with that score. However, why do we have to start playing in the second half? Why is it that we had 20 rushing yards in the first 30 minutes of football and then we ended with 98? Like, where was that first half? Like, come on, guys. And so it just wasn't working very well. And it's funny because in the stands when you're there, it was so easy to think like, man, Jake Mayer's been having a solid game. But then you're like, actually, is he? He's rushing the ball. Like they're running their running backs every single play. Jake Mayer's great game has been this. And he's been great at handing the ball off, because if you look at those throwing stats, they tell a different story now, do they, Rick?
122 passing yards.
Yep.
That's all I got to say is 101 interception.
Uh-huh.
He only threw 14 passes out of 25. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. Outside of BC and Winnipeg,
yep,
your West, you could honestly take a dice and just like roll it to see and like who makes the playoffs. However, I do have a question for you.
No, I think Calgary makes the playoffs. I think BC makes playoffs, and I think Winnipeg makes playoffs. Because Saskatchewan barely beat the fucking Elks tonight. The Elks are the Elks, and then that's your West.
My question is, did anyone check on McRae to see if he was still alive when he tried to run that back and try to pull a Grant and try to run it? And then
but let's be fair to here. So how many yards does he get there? He runs about 100 yards forwards. Mm-hmm. Now that is 100 yards forward. Keep in mind he ran like 20 yards to the right to get around all these guys, and then he's running diagonally down the field. The guy ran at least 150 yards on that play. 150 yards, just ridiculous.
It's funny because like as you're watching it on TV, as you're watching it on TV, he's just running and he sees the guy behind him and he's just losing, like he's about to collapse on the field. He's like, screw this. Like, I'm not running for my life anymore. And he just got tackled.
Oh my goodness. But he did very, very well, and he got himself to a good spot on the field. We were able to get a field goal off that. But overall, it was really funny when Willie Jefferson put a decent amount of pressure on Jake Mayer. Jake Mayer throw incomplete pass, and then Jefferson hits Mayer, but he was already like mid throw, so it was legal because like Jefferson had committed to the hit at the proper time, and he takes him down, and Jefferson was almost like worried that like he was gonna get a roughing the passer penalty, but he didn't. Just because DNs, they worry about that, because they, like, as far as they're concerned, they committed to the hit, but you never know with the ref. And the ref didn't give him a penalty, so Willie Jefferson literally walked over to him and gave the guy a hug right in the middle of the field. I literally pissed myself. I thought that was so fucking funny because it was just Willie Jefferson, like, it's just like these big lanky arms, like, and also it's like, how can you not love this man? How can you not love this man? It's just great.
What I found interesting about this game is Calgary scored 10 points in the first. Yep. You guys scored 1 point. Calgary scored 1 point in the second. You guys scored 10 points. So it's literally the opposite score of the quarter.
And that touchdown, like, of that 10 points was literally like mediocre. One great pass to Dalton Schoen. Mediocre, touchdown. Like, it literally was like a sea of mediocrity, an amazing pass to Dalton Schoen, and it just turned it around. And that's the thing that's been such a big difference maker is a guy like Dalton Schoen, and he is the Bombers' number one. And I mean, I don't know when we'll see Kenny Lawler, if ever, because it seems like we're not figuring that out.
I will say, though, I will give Calgary credit for keeping you guys under 30 points.
Yeah, no. Like, Calgary, their defense played solid. I'm still annoyed a little bit with the lack of protection for Zach Collaros. I harped on this all off season because we were losing Couture. And it's just like, this is a time where I would love to make a trade for a guy like Drew Desjardins because the Red Blacks aren't doing anything. We can give them some stuff of value for their future because the Bombers' future is now. The Bombers are the right now. So I'd be cool giving up draft picks, trading someone, getting a guy like Desjardins back. We could really use that on that offensive line. But
and I'm sure he would want to come back to you guys after being on a losing team.
And well, because he was on a losing team that had hope, and now he's on a losing team that doesn't have hope. And we'll get to that, to the point where, like, Rick, would we consider making a separate video for that? Like, even like just like 10 minutes talking about that as well? I think we might.
What about the Ottawa thing? Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Because it's such a big change. Like, but actually, let's get to that. So, let's finish this one up. Bombers 24-11 victory over the Stamps. What was that?
I was going to say, before we do, because I know I showed you a photo of this, we are going to support my Fire Condell shirt, and I'm going to be wearing this at every home game, every away game, until his buddy...
And every video, right? Every video.
And every video.
Until he's canned.
You are honestly, you'd be surprised of how many fans have gotten my support on social media with this shirt.
Bro, you got to start selling that. You can make bank.
But yeah, to be honest, I don't know if you've watched this game.
I was not able to watch this game, but I heard about
I will say that throwing short passes instead of long passes every play actually works.
Yep.
Mine's Mazzoli.
Now, here's the thing I will say. I need to first defend myself because I remember I was talking to someone and they're like, "Yeah, I watched your video. You said the Red Blacks were winning." Hey, I expected Mazzoli for 60 minutes. That was with the understanding and he was playing the whole game. Not only did we not get that, we didn't even get him half a game. like.
I will say though, one thing that I will mention
Yep.
before I continue, I have to give a shout out to Adam, our lovely friend in Ottawa, who we FaceTimed while I was in Ottawa, who actually came up to me and said, "You're from CFL Central," and I said, "Yes, I am."
We're
And
making
then
the
I
news, man.
FaceTimed you, and I'm like, "Carter, look, we have a fans. We are making the news in Ottawa." So I
There we
wanted
go.
to give that shout
We're
out to
making
Adam.
noise. We're making noise in the CFL. We're moving the chains. That's what's happening,
But
isn't that right?
he threw 6 for 10 for 37 yards, and something was off. Something didn't seem right when I was watching the game from in person.
Oh, it was his first game back in a while. Like, take some time to.
In a year to the year to the injury. Then you go and he falls. I thought like he tripped or something like that. He gets up and he's not walking. You see Jaguar Davis like waving over staff. Like you see all the Tie-Cat players, because you got to remember he played for us from 13 to 21.
And, this was very much a situation of where it didn't matter. We just hope this guy's okay.
Yeah, it turns out today that last year it's the opposite Achilles that he injured this year. So,
poor guy.
Hopefully
just can't
he's
catch a
okay
break.
with everything moving forward. My personal opinion,
Yeah,
I think he's done.
I don't see him continuing after this. Like
I
two
don't
straight years like that, near already the ending part of his career. It's just one of those things where you have to ask the question, is it worth it anymore?
My thing is, I don't mean this in the slightest rude way, so please, anyone who thinks that I'm being rude, I'm not. Me personally, if I'm a father and I have children, which I know he has a daughter,
this is exactly what I mean by is it worth it?
I want to be able to walk. If I'm him, I would want to be able to walk my daughter down the aisle when she gets married. And I don't want to be able to.
Yeah,
this is
getting to the point where these injuries are not a when can I play again issue. It is a quality of life issue, and so it's one of those things where Mazzoli may decide that he wants to kind of, hang his helmet up, and call it a career. And if he does, he's had a good career. He's had a lot to show for it. Obviously he wanted a bit more than that, and I know he still does, but it sadly, it doesn't always work out. But I could see him possibly having maybe a future doing something in some sort of CFL management thing if he had decided to do that. But in terms of playing days, like you have that injury with Garrett Marino, dirty shit injury. And sadly, looking back on that now, that injury is not just a dirty play. That injury really seems like it signals the beginning of the end of Jeremiah Mazzoli.
Yeah. One thing that I will mention about this game, and there were so many memes going on social media. So we have a player that made his debut this week that we signed 2 weeks ago. His name is Tyreek McAllister. And I'm sure you can see where I'm going with these memes. So there was Ottawa red-black play. Schultz threw a screen pass to him. Duke Williams and a couple other people threw out blocks. You could see the memes on social media right now. Is the McAllister house getting robbed because Kevin McAllister is running from Harvey and Marv down the field?
I knew it was going home alone. I knew it was going home alone.
That's all I seen on social media were those memes. Yeah. And then Sandini had a good game.
Yep.
He only missed one pass. Duke Williams had 3 out of 5 for 43 yards. The only player that you did not see much is Tim White. He only had one pass for 7 yards.
Which is fair, considering
However,
you were actually complaining the other game. Can we please throw to someone other than Tim White?
the downside thing is that I will say is Mr. We got our kicker from Winnipeg decides to miss. He can kick a 50-yard field goal, but how do you miss an extra point from 15 yards away from the goal line?
Oh, wait, hold on a second. Legio missed a convert?
He kicks
Legio missed a convert.
five field goals.
Legio missed the convert, didn't he?
Field goals.
Legio missed the convert. Of course he did. Of course he did. Of course he did. This is exactly the same thing. He would hit the 40-yard field goal, and he'd miss the 1 point. And what have we learned about this week in football, Rick? 1 point matters. It matters. Oh, my goodness.
Then,
oh, my goodness.
they bring in Crum.
You Ticats fans should know from Grey Cup experience that 1 point matters a lot.
Justin Crum comes in from Mazzoli. He throws 2 interceptions. Not only that, but he gets a running touchdown, so he gets their only touchdown. He decides at the end of the game he's going to run down to the 5-yard line, or the 2. Almost gets the touchdown. They still would have been short anyways, because they were down by 9. And no, they were down by 7, sorry. So they needed that touchdown and the extra point.
Yep.
But Simone Lawrence comes up big at the very last second and tackles him. However, our defense came alive because we had 3 picks and 5 sacks.
Damn, there you go.
So hopefully we come alive again this week against the 0-5 Elks, because this week will have me worried on the end of my seat.
And this is really important for the Ticats, because now it's like you were 0-3, you're now 1-3. This is your perfect chance to build back up, get back to that even record that you guys want. As like we have been saying for weeks now, the Ticats, they always have a little bit of a slow start, but they get going eventually. But
this is, before we go on to the last game, this is the last game that an embarrassment is going to happen if it does, because we play the Elks at home and their losing streak is on the line. I don't need to say more.
Oh my goodness, it is.
Anyways, going to the last game of the week, it was Sac Central
between the Montreal Alouettes and the BC Lions. BC Lions with a 35-19 victory over the Alouettes. Vernon Adams Jr. decided that throwing 6 picks was actually not a good way to win a football game. So he didn't decide to do that. I don't know how many picks he threw, but he didn't throw 6. I know that. And so this is this.
Speaking of picks, yeah. I don't know if you watched this game or not.
I watched little bits of it.
The very first pass this guy throws, Vernon Adams, is a pick 6.
Oh my God.
To Montreal.
I can't even imagine what Lions fans must have been thinking.
However, it was called back due to an illegal block.
You got to be so careful on those interceptions with those blocks, because it's just so little could ruin so much in terms of like one illegal block can destroy the entire touchdown. And now you've also lost possession. Like, just kind of crazy to think about, you know?
The funny thing is, Sean Shivers that filled in for Mizzle had 63 yards and 1 touchdown. And this guy is probably, I think, like 5'9", 5'10", and 190. Like, this guy's, like, small.
Damn. Yeah, this is an example of a game where, like, the Alouettes weren't winning this game. But if you're the Alouettes, you got to try to put up as much as you can, and it seems like so I'm looking at the East right now, and it seemed like for a while the Alouettes were kind of going to be that odd team out. Even though, like, the Red Blacks were not in that great trajectory. Like, they had a decent trajectory, even though they were starting not so great. Mazzoli was going to come back. Seemingly everything was going to kind of get into the fold. Montreal, to me, is the team that kind of, like, flips and flops like the fish out of the water and somehow finds itself in the boat that is called the playoffs. So it's one of those things where I expect that, the Ticats are going to get consistently better. The Red Blacks are going to get consistently worse. And the Alouettes are going to be consistently the Alouettes. And if you're the Alouettes, the number one thing you need to fix is your O-line.
The funny thing is
Sac City, like we
that
said.
The Alouettes, I don't know how many illegal penalties that they had this game, but every time they had momentum, it was called back due to a penalty. And I did some research. Fajardo was actually sacked 61 of 77 times last year in Saskatchewan and not 54.
You just love that number is bigger than you first thought. That's just
considering that he's already been sacked 21 times this year in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because first off, he hasn't exactly been blessed with the greatest O-line in either spot. But then also, Cody Fajardo, for me, does not stand as a quarterback that, when he gets under pressure, he's really, really good at avoiding it and being able to still get that pass off. He's kind of a quarterback that sometimes crumbles around it, where when his O-line gets overwhelmed, his mind panics, he stalls, and then he just gets ran over. And sadly, that's what you saw with him in Saskatchewan, and that's what we're seeing a bit with the Alouettes.
And the thing is with BC kind of reminds me of you guys at Winnipeg. They have so much depth at wide receiver. You don't even have to throw to Rhymes every game.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Can throw to... And the other thing that I've seen in social media by Als fans is they're asking, where is Stanback? Because Stanback has not been seen so far this season. He is not putting up he's putting up numbers, but not great numbers. He's not getting touchdowns.
And if this should make you, if we're going to draw any comparisons here, we have a guy like Stanback, gets injured, he's out for the season, comes back in second game last year, gets injured again, goes out, comes back this year. He's playing, he's not injured, but he's just not the same. And it's one of those things where now it's you compare that to Jeremiah Mazzoli's situation. It's if you're Mazzoli, is it worth the risk? Is it going to be the same Jeremiah Mazzoli? Sadly, most likely not if he came back. If you even look, if we're looking at our examples, take a look at the NHL. With the exception of this year, every single year after Erik Karlsson broke his foot, he had never been the same. Now, he seemingly has figured that out this year. 6 years later, that is time that Mazzoli does not have when it comes to his career in the CFL. But it was one of those things where those kind of injuries can really screw you up in multiple different ways. And so it's one of those things where Stanback, if you're Stanback, it's you gotta figure that out, because that excellent player that went down with that injury, that's the player that the Alouettes, have been waiting for to come back. That's kind of the void that they feel you fill in that lineup. And right now it's just not really up to snuff. So it's one of those things where if you're the Alouettes, you can hopefully figure out the William Stanback situation.
Yeah. But we could go on for at least a good 20 minutes on this whole Mazzoli thing.
Yeah, I'll have to see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll try to figure that out exactly when we'll do that. But I feel like we'll have to do some sort of update on that, as it literally pertains to the entire future of the team this season. But I think we pretty much covered each of the games this week. Let me know what you guys thought of this week's crazy games in the comment section down below. This is why I love the CFL. A lot of crazy stuff happens. Some of it fun, some of it's sad, some of it's crying, some of it's happy, some of it is Rick hoping for people to lose their livelihoods.
Good job.
And to promote that. here, so that way people then want to stop coming on the podcast. So, so I hope you guys enjoyed this vid. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below if you guys have not already. And we will see you guys next time.